My name is Mel Yu. I'm a personal branding strategist and owner of MCO Events, and this is the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast.
Mel, welcome to the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast.
Thanks, Dan.
It is a pleasure to have you on today. I was on the drive over here. I've been trying so hard to figure out what direction I want to go with in this episode today. There's so many different directions we can go in. But before we dive in, I'd love for you to give the audience a bit of context around what really drives your why, what really drives your purpose today.
Okay, you're asking a very deep question to open with, so I'm going to match that with a lot of depth.
Beautiful.
My purpose is to leave people in a better place than when I found them. And if I can do no harm and add value, that's what really drives me. But the core of why that is my why is at 23 years old, I lost my late partner to suicide. I found him. It was a huge fork in the road for me. When most people go out and drink and have fun and party, at 23, I think I was forced to do some real deep personal development. And yeah, it was a very dark place for a very dark and long time until I kind of figured out how I could use my voice to share my experience and turn that pain into purpose. And that's really the core of what drives me to this day. And I think when people look at my content and if they've just entered my world or your audience that might not know me and they go onto socials, you might see quite a bubbly, glowing, successful entrepreneur. And that's because the brand's evolved so much. But down at the core, and for me that has full context of my life, my purpose comes from a significant amount of loss.
There are often varying degrees of pain or challenge, discomfort and resistance, and I think it's always relative, right? We can look at what someone is going through over here and it may seem minuscule in comparison to the person over here, but the feeling ends up being the same to an extent.
Absolutely.
I'm interested to know when you were in that dark spot, and it may not even just be then. I'm sure inevitably there are going to be more moments like that throughout our life. But when you're in that kind of lowest point, what is the action or what is the mindset shift that you're leaning into to start building your way out? I think something that a bit of a misconception is that we should be trying to go from here to here, but sometimes just about starting to climb the ladder and allow that momentum to kind of lead you to what's next. So what was it for you that allowed you to get out of that? What was that initial moment of like, okay, this needs to change, or this is what I'm going to start doing to start building some momentum? Yeah.
And you're so right. Like, I think we're all capable of hard things, and every single one of our lives have had these hard moments, and not necessarily has to be as traumatic or as dark as mine. But for me, one was faith. Yeah, this idea of faith, and I say faith, not religion, because it was this idea that things happen and sometimes we have a choice and others it's chosen for us. And in this moment, I had to have a lot of trust in whatever you want to call it, the universe, source, God, your creator. It's this idea that there is something greater than you. And that silver lining was what got me through the darkest days. It's easy to say that now with that story that was 10 years on, 11 years on. But in that exact moment when I was in a very, very dark place and there was no listening to podcasts and working through sort of Tony Robbins work or these self-development works, mine was taking every day as it comes. And sometimes it's not even every day. Sometimes it might be minutes and surviving every micro moment to get to the next thing. And for people that are going through depression, they would empathize here that even taking a shower, something that seems so easy or automated, can become quite heavy and hard. And so allowing yourself that grace and that time that even if you just took a shower or you got out of bed today, that could be a win. And we should celebrate those little micro wins because they're the things that get you to the next day. And if you can keep faith and just say, just one more day, I'll give it one more day, somehow those days actually compound. And before you know it, a decade long, and you're looking back at this story and it's actually full of adventure and full of light and full of color. I think that's kind of what kept me through.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
When people enter the world of personal development, I feel like I definitely experienced this, and I'm keen to hear whether you did too. we can kind of have this period of time where it's like this fire's lit inside of you and it's like you're starting to operate and understand what the hell a fucking high frequency is and you're vibrating at this highest frequency and you're seeing all these synchronicities.
Yes.
And it almost comes this point where it's like that becomes almost like the addiction or the drug of like, shit, I'm now searching for the next thing. And like I'm doing all this work, but a topic or the question that I'm about to lead to now is like I'm not feeling happy all the time. I'm still having these moments where shit's challenging or I'm waking up and the motivation's not there. And there is this big misconception that, you know, we can or even should be happy all the time. And I've heard you talk about it before and articulate it like it's an emotion, right? And how do we have the comparison or how can we compare that great feeling when we never experience the low side of it?
Yes.
And so I guess the question I'm getting to is, what's your advice or what do you recommend for people or what does that conversation look like around understanding those kind of ebbs and flows and like whether or not we're thinking it's not working because we're still having shit days here or there or not? What's your take on that?
I love that. Thank you so much for asking me that question because this couldn't have come at a more perfect time. This happened exactly last night. So it's like a real life experience that I just shared with my partner last night. I was saying we're creating these amazing offers in the business and a lot of services and I'm really excited about this program. And it kind of I let slip that it was like this program is going to generate me about 150K of profit in one container or in one service. And I'm like, I'm so excited because when we get that, I can just relax for a little bit. And he actually pulled me up and goes, babe, you shouldn't think like that because the reality is whatever it is, there's still going to be hard days. Don't think that when you get to that goal and you release that product or service or when you reach this quote unquote success, things are going to suddenly get easier because it's not.
Yes.
And I had to settle back into that and reflect on that because no matter what stage or what level we play at, the hard days and the challenges are actually guaranteed. Whatever that may look like, there's always going to be some form of death. And I don't mean that physically, but like if you're into personal development and you're listening to this particular podcast, you're a high achiever, you're a high performer and you understand high levels of frequency. But we're always going to have different things because at every new level there's going to be a new devil and there's always going to be things that will challenge us because we've got the growth mindset. And so to grow, we have to get contracted, then expanded, contracted and then expanded. And so constantly we're chasing that stretch, which means that the hard days are actually part of it.
100%.
And being able to sit in that, I think Jay Shetty shows this a lot better than me, but I'm paraphrasing some of his learnings in this moment is a person that's dead, what happens to their heartbeat, right? It's just a flat line and it just lines flat. And when on the monitor someone is alive, it goes like this. And so this representation of life is, for those that are just listening, I'm kind of going up and down on a graph, is there are always going to be highs and lows. That's the whole point of being alive. And especially if you're an entrepreneur, the very idea of an entrepreneur is eating shit.
Yeah.
Again and again and again. We were just saying this offline here that, you know, Dan's done 574 episodes and I'm like, that's a lot of shit eating, bro.
Professional shit eater.
Yeah, like 574. I'm like, my jaw dropped because what's the average? The average podcast I think is 11 episodes and to be in the top 1% is to have more than 11 episodes or, it's know, 50 episodes or something ridiculous. So you're in like 0.00001% of top podcasters. And I think that's just epic. But I don't think you went out and set yourself to do that. You just became that as it compounded.
Of course, yeah. And the reps and that consistency of showing up is what is such a large and fundamental part of who I am today and why I am who I am today and how I've gotten to this point. And to your point, like I want to talk about, I want to bring up this analogy that I think you'll like, to the point of, I often say that like when there are these challenges or perceived problems that show up and arise, like that's our ticket for growth. Now, I don't play PlayStation at all, right? I have obviously, but when you think of it, it's very similar, right? When you begin a PlayStation game, there's a very good reason why you don't start on the last level because you don't have the skill sets, the confidence, the belief, the understanding to be able to thrive in that level. But it's inevitable, and we all know that on every single level, the mission is going to get harder. And if you are unable to pass it, then you have to stay on that level until you can. I think one of the things that business owners struggle with a lot, and obviously you would have so much understanding and context around this, which we see these opportunities that arise, and it's almost like it's a bad thing. It's like, oh, shit's going wrong. But it's like, hang on, you've put in your desire, you've decided what you want, and each one of these missions is our opportunity to show the universe or whatever you want to lean into, like, I'm ready or I'm not ready. And if you're not ready, then get fucking ready, because it's going to show up again.
Damn.
But you also have to know that every single level you go through, those opportunities and tickets for growth should get bigger. They should get harder. They should be more difficult to move through. Mm-hmm. And if we refer it back to the PlayStation game, that's exactly why most people never make it to the final level, right? Is because they, as you said before, they get sick of eating shit.
Yeah.
It's like you get to a certain
Sucks
level
to lose.
and you can't move through it. But I think we have the understanding around it is wrong to an extent of, like, we see it as a negative that this thing is arising that's making us uncomfortable and making us feel out of depth and that we're failing at. But that's quite literally what you asked for. And until you can move through that non-resistance, why would the universe give you what's next when you're not going to be able to hold it?
Yeah. The moment that you send out a desire or a goal and you ask the universe for that, 100% the universe goes, all right, let me test you now.
Yeah.
Here's a series of tests to see if, not that it's not so much that you're worthy, it's just, do you have the resilience and also the capability to hold it?
Yeah.
Because at every level, it's not just achieving it once, right? Like in the game of business and entrepreneurship, you might get one piece of content that goes absolutely viral or one episode that gets significantly more downloads than others. But then what? Yeah. So it's the consistency that far outweighs any of those sort of big wins and just continuously going through and building. And I totally agree. Like the universe is always out there to, test you. And going back to what kept me going, that idea of faith is just recognizing that it's like, oh, you're trying to show me something again, or there's a lesson here that I had to learn. And once you realize that failure, this word failure, is a part of success, not opposite to success. Success. It's not separate. It's actually, if you want success, then the path is failure and many of it. Yeah. Elon Musk didn't set out to go to space he nearly went bankrupt. Right? Launching the rocket. And it's like, that's kind of the extremities of what you kind of have to go through in order to succeed.
Yeah. I really like to look at these failures as such as attempts. You know, when you can even frame it that way in your head of like, okay, that's attempt number 1.
Yes.
It's attempt number 2.
Yes.
Want to quickly come back to the embodiment piece that you alluded to a little bit. One of my kind of favorite statements with my clients is that the universe is always catching up to who we're being. And so if who we're being is a reaction to how things are, then we're recreating the same cycle over and over again. And coming back to these tickets for growth, it's like, can you show up and be the embodiment of who you know you need to be for that to be a normal thing?
Love it.
And so the question I have for you is, when you made that kind of convicted decision to go, you know what, like, this is what I want to do. I want to go out and have an impact. I want to, create this abundance for myself. What were the biggest things that you had to embody that weren't part of who you were or your self-image at the beginning?
Yeah. Wow, at the beginning, I wasn't even conscious of it. Like I only really started speaking in the language of energy and frequency like really recently, because there's another, it's like V3, version 3.4 of Mel now. And there's we're having this conversation at quite a pivotal time of where Mel is repositioning her brand again. But I think as you start off, I have no business doing business, full stop. Yeah. Like I just fell into entrepreneurship, but knowing that I had a desire to be more, to do more, to impact more was the first sign. And then because I didn't have anyone within my community or my circle at the time and no one to influence me to do better, we lived in a beautiful generation of the internet. And so my mentors to really start off were Gary Vee, Tony Robbins, Joe Dispenza, Eckhart Tolle, like all from not Australia.
Yep.
But the access that we had to adopt these learnings, I became quite influenced by it and impacted by it. And then, as you kind of mentioned, is like we can absorb all that, but don't make the mistake of not doing anything, because then you can get into just this like learning cycle or become a seminar junkie. I actually started applying it and taking action on each thing, which is where I started building businesses. I started building different brands, getting feedback. And so, to answer your question, look at the people that you aspire to be or aspire to live like, and have a look at their, not just what they say, but what they do.
Yeah.
Have a look at how they would show up. And in this version of Mel, there's quite a few times where to make a really hard decision, to be able to shortcut that decision, all I do is say, what would Elon do in this moment?
Yeah.
Like I literally just say that, or like, what would Jobs have done?
Yeah.
What would Richard Branson do? And I use these people that I aspire to be and go, they would make a decision like that. They would make a really clear decision and they'll be bullish on it. And so that's kind of really helped me get out of analysis paralysis, or when I'm like, I don't know what way, both ways are right. Or both ways are wrong. You won't know until you take that step.
100%.
And then recognizing that course redirection is always available to you.
Yeah.
That's something that I've really learned is like the most successful people that I see, they make decisions. They don't have all the information. They don't have all the data. They just make the best decision that they have with the tools and the skills that they have and the understanding and the data that they have at the time. And they're not always right.
Yeah. Speed of implementation.
Yeah. That's a huge thing.
Yeah, I feel like I think about it in the same way as yourself. I kind of refer to it like I want to be thinking and making decisions from the goal, not towards the goal, like from the goal itself.
As if you've already had it.
100%. So it's like, okay, when I am, not if, like when I am here, what would that version of me, like how would that version of me make this decision?
Yeah.
And with what energy and with what conviction and would it, because I think, and I'm going to ask you in a second about.
I want to ask you a question as well right now in my train of thought. So
go for it.
Well, I want to know when you found out about this. Like you seem like someone that recognizes that your words are spells. Like anything that you put out into the universe in terms of your language, like what you've just mentioned, and you've said it a couple of times, like it's not if, it's when.
Yep.
It's the goal. It's already achieved it. Like how did you just adopt that learning and recognize it? Because we hear it all the time now that you've heard it, right, in your consciousness. People say it so subconsciously. They use the words try, they use the word just, they use the word if only.
Yep.
Like where did that come from?
It's a good question. I will definitely say there's been a number of big influences on the shift or on my understanding. Like I'd say some of the biggest ones have been guys like Robin Sharma, Joe Dispenza. Like I went and did a week-long retreat with Joe, which was amazing. Bob Proctor has been a huge one for me. He's someone who I've learned a lot from. But to your question, Joe Dispenza was probably the first person who really allowed me to think like that to an extent. What I started to understand, and once I understood that we are continually recreating what we react to. And so I started to zoom out and look at my life and looked at the areas that I felt like there was resistance or areas where I wasn't seeing the growth that I wanted to. And when I looked at that, I was showing up as the same person to all of it, right? Yeah. But trying to achieve an outcome that didn't align with that person. Is that kind of making sense?
Yeah. And so you had to you almost had to kill your old identity and create a new one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I started thinking like, okay, once I typically understood like the law of vibration and frequency, and I started kind of pairing these bits and pieces together, I'm like, okay, well, if I am wanting to become this person here, it's not going to accidentally happen while I'm acting like this person here. And so I saw one of the kind of pivotal moments for me when I really anchored into vibration was when I first put out an offer for personal development, right? And so I went through the same shit that most people do, a little bit of imposter syndrome, a bit of a identity, not an identity death, but more so like, oh, this feels out of alignment a bit. Well, I was worried about the perception of it, actually. It didn't feel out of alignment. It felt in full alignment.
Caring what other people were thinking at that time.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so I released this mastermind and I advertised it for about a month and it was cheap as shit. And I was like, I'm so excited to start delivering this stuff because I was already having these conversations very regularly. And so it got to the day of the launch of the mastermind and I had 0 signups. And so in that moment right there, I had been doing a lot of work of understanding the law of vibration and frequency and embodiment. And so I just said to myself, okay, I've got a couple of options. One, I can just never mention this again and pretend like it was sold out and do another one another month. Or two, I can really anchor into the version of me who is the person I'm trying to become, right? So let's just say I want to be the person who is seen as an authority in that space or is whatever, working with the clientele of my dreams, right? So I actually put out a post on social media. I'm like, hey, and at that time, like my fitness coaching was great. And so I think the perception from other people and even for myself was like, oh, that audience will just gravitate to this straight away. And they didn't. So I put out a post saying, look, I advertised this for a month. I had 0 signups, but I want you to watch what I'm going to do next. Watch what I do next. And so off the back of that, I made this conscious decision of like, I'm going to release a new mastermind in the following weeks. And regardless of how many people sign up, I actually increase the price as well from the first one.
No one bought. I'm going to increase the price. I love that.
Yep. I was like, I am going to show up to this 4-week mastermind as if there are 1,000 people on every single call and as if they've all paid me $100,000 to be in that 4 weeks.
Yep.
And so throughout that 4 weeks, the shift that I felt in not reacting to what was in front of me, but more so responding in the way that I know it will be. So I'm allowing that time for the universe to catch up, I guess you could say. And so this all really kicked off with one of my mentors. It was funny, I'm glad you brought this up. The spot that I parked in today for this episode is the exact spot that I was parked in for this mentoring call that I'm about to talk about. Oh my God. So I got in this call, paid like a pretty significant amount of money for this call relative at the time. And my mentor kind of said, look, like, what is it that you want? Like, what's the block and what's the desire? And I told her what the desire was, and her answer was, you don't want that. And I was like, fuck, I'm glad I paid this money to get someone to tell me that I don't want what I just said I want. But she was 100% right. Yeah. She said, before our call, you've been articulating that your online coaching business doesn't feel aligned at the moment. You're not looking forward to check-in days. You're not charging enough.
Yep.
You're spending most of the day in a gym with PT clients, but you're saying you want this online coaching business.
Yeah.
And so off the back of that, I went home, and at the time I maybe had $7,000 or $8,000 worth of recurring clients per month. And I'd built that business over a 6 or 7 year period. PT, again, was like fully jam-packed. I went home, I sent an email or a message to all of those clients and said, hey, I'm actually finishing this up today. I'm going to kind of cancel every single client that I have online, but I'll be relaunching tomorrow with this new offer. Price is very different, but you can use your current payment as credit if you want. Otherwise, appreciate you understanding and catch you later. And I also halved the amount of hours I did as a PT. So the reason I did this, there was a number of them. One was I heard this story once, right, about manifesting, where this guy goes to a village to teach these people how to manifest. And it was a desert and it hadn't rained for years. And so he goes, look, this is what I want you to do. I'm going to come back in a month and we'll see how you went. And so he comes back to this village and he goes, how did you go? And they're like, oh, this shit doesn't work. Nothing happened. And he goes, well, what did you try and manifest? And they said, we really wanted it to rain. We need water to drink, to bathe ourselves, to wash and all this stuff. He said, okay, well, where are all the ditches in the ground? Like, where did you dig the ditches? And they're like, why the fuck would we dig ditches? And he's like, well, if you genuinely believed it was going to rain, you would have made sure there was somewhere for the water to go. And so to that point, I had to let go of the thing that no longer served me to start aligning with what I actually wanted, to the point where if I looked at myself and my life from the outside in, it would make sense that the outcome I'm saying I wanted would happen. It would be normal if it did happen.
Yes.
So I relaunched the business, drastically increased the prices, changed the offer, it made it feel really aligned. And as I said, I quite literally removed 75% of my income and revenue. But what happened in the following month is what really anchored me into just that trust and that faith. And you mentioned the word faith before. And this same mentor said to me around that time that like faith is trust without evidence.
Yes.
And so I'd been for so long looking for the evidence before I made the move, or in order to feel the certain way that I wanted to. And in the following month, like I did more revenue in that 1 month than I'd done for the previous 12. And the skill sets that I was now implementing were at their lowest. My, the confidence in like even selling the offer was probably at its lowest, but I was so anchored into excitement and anticipation of not waiting to feel the thing.
Yeah.
Of going, okay, well, how can I start feeling like that now, to the point where I'm almost detached from even needing it?
Yeah.
And so I can show up as that version of me now instead of waiting for anything.
It's so powerful.
Because I'd been for so long putting what I wanted on a pedestal, which is me basically saying I'm below it and that I don't have what I need to be here. And so it was almost this waiting game of like, as you said before, once I get here, that's when this thing's going to happen. Yeah. Once I get here, that's when I'll still start to feel fulfillment. But it was just that convicted decision to go, you have to become that now and feel into that now.
Yeah.
And so that was such a pivotal moment for me, because it was never from a lack of trying. And I actually heard you on a podcast recently talk about slowing down to go faster. I had been so anchored into hard work and grind and hustle forever. And it served me really well in a number of things. But in this instance, I had to learn to let go and to actually slow down in order to go faster and to create space for what I was asking for, to the point where if the following day I had 100 new high ticket clients sign up, it would work and it would make sense and it'd feel normal. Whereas before that, I'm asking for this and showing up like this.
Yeah.
And so it does not make any sense.
It was incongruent.
Not at all.
And also just to add to that a couple things.
Sorry, it was quite a long answer.
No, that like such an important thing. This is the best part about podcasts that have two guests that are on the same frequency as well. It becomes a dialogue and a conversation, not an interview.
Yeah, correct.
And this lights me up.
Great.
This really lights me up because it's equal conversation and we're sharing knowledge.
Yep, beautiful.
And so on that, something that I've recognized, which is the slowing down to speed up, 100%, people that could see my brand was like, there's no denying Mel Yu as a brand works hard. There's just, I've got the reps, I've got the stats. Everyone knows I work hard.
Yep.
I'm now at a stage of my life and business where I don't necessarily want to work hard. I want to enjoy some of that. And I had to also recognize that what got me here is not what's going to get me there.
Yes.
And now that's been such a huge lesson because there's so much of my identity around working hard. It's like, well, if I didn't work hard, I wouldn't have 6 figures in my bank account or 7 figures. I wouldn't have this type of business and affluence. And it
exactly
has, and I'm so grateful because I get to live my life. But now this version of Mel does have bigger dreams, bigger income, bigger impact, bigger influence. And the first time this year I've really stopped looking at Mel as an Australian brand or a Melbourne brand. I'm looking at it as a global brand, which then you're stretched, right? Because your impact and everything. And this day and age, there's no reason why we all can't be global brands, especially on a podcast platform. We should be global. And so that requires a different identity upgrade or not even identity upgrade, an identity reveal. Because it's always been within us and it's always been us. And what I love about you sharing that story is sometimes success is totally illogical and often Delulu is the Salulu, right? Like you should be delusional because that's where you can jump into that quantum leap. And it sounds like from that moment, you doing a hard and fast cut it took a lot of steps to get there. But when you figured out that was the clarity, you did it overnight.
Yeah, exactly.
You just got up, sent an email and got rid of everyone. And I'm going, oh my God, like I don't know if I could do that. But you did that and then the identity shift instantly upgraded overnight. And so you can quantum leap to things that are not necessarily logical to many, right?
100%.
Like, what do you mean you collapsed time and made in one offer what you did in 12 months?
Correct.
People can't fathom that.
Yep. And that is exactly why they won't experience that. I think it's, as you said, when you've kind of looked at how you've got from where you started to where you are, it required time, effort, and it almost in a sense was kind of linear over time, right?
Yes.
And so for you to then go to this next level, we are thinking the same way of like, okay, what's this linear progression going to look like? But it doesn't have to be linear. The following week you could have fucking 200x what you have done before. And it wasn't because you worked harder. It wasn't because of you had this secret bullet. It was like just that shift in identity, the shift in the alignment. And I truly, like, especially now, really understand that the term metaphysical, right? Of like every single thing that materializes in reality had to start with a thought and emotion. And when you can wrap your head around that and stop looking at, oh, well, I'm this way because of this, or I have this belief because of this. It's like, no, those things happen because of you being that way already.
Yeah.
I think that's exciting, right? Because you can detach from all of the limitations, the excuses, the victim mentality, all of this stuff, and kind of just lean into like, I'm actively creating my reality at all times.
Yeah.
And so I want to follow up what we're talking about now with asking you what caused this shift recently? Like what was it that really kind of allowed you to kind of go deeper with this stuff?
Yeah. So the most recent thing is I feel like I've gone through an ego death. Like I've gone into this death portal and I've had a series of purging in every area of my life to now unfold this next sort of thing. And I've spoken to a few people that are into astronomy or like clairvoyance and psychic. So they've got one opinion, but I want to bring that back to more like a real life for those that are much more left brain and need strategy and processes. But I went through a pretty tough breakup 8-9 months ago and then ended a business as well. because it just wasn't flowing and it wasn't working. And I had this thing where I'm like, I can build 2 companies. And I basically started a digital marketing agency as a sister company to my events company. Made sense. Definitely, I think from every other accord, it's like that seems in alignment. It made sense. But running an agency is just a whole nother conversation. And it wasn't aligned to where I was. We were doing more revenue. We had 7 staff. We had a bougie-ass South Melbourne office, all these sort of things. But it was not working because it was requiring just so much from me. Yep. And so seeking mentorship was also a huge thing, seeking coaching so someone can hold your hand while you're navigating these quite challenging things like letting staff go. This was the first time I'd ever done layoffs and
having a perspective without the emotion.
Yeah, because I'm already quite an emotional being. And also we're humans are meaning-making machines. So we want to be like, and there is a part of me where the ego was like, I've gone all out and told everyone I'm running a digital marketing agency, and I'm like, I've definitely invested and heroed this. And now for me to just drop that, what are people going to think? Or but once I let go of all of that, because it's really just ego. And to be honest, no one cares about my story like as much as we care about it. No one's thinking about us. No one wakes up and is like, I hope Dan's podcast is all right. Like, it's just not it. And so once we let all that go, I've been able to come back. This was the slowing down journey. So this was the slowing down and letting the dust kind of settle and go, all right, now where's my next play? And I say the word play because now there's this funness of I've let go of so many of like what I think life should be and I'm dancing with the universe. Like I'm having a play and co-creating with the universe, which is why this energy is a lot more lighter. It's much more magnetic. It probably attracted you to me to have this podcast conversation at this particular time because maybe before it was like, we've been in each other's lives for quite some time, half a decade, I think. But this is the first time we're actually having this because this is the time that the universe is like, the best conversation is going to happen here. And so, this new version of Mel is exactly that. Like, who does she want to be? And, who is she already? And how do we act from that place? And so the way that I walk has kind of shifted. People have been saying when I come into rooms, they're like, you've got a different walk on you. And I was like, wow, it's just crazy because our body language is even signaling to the universe who it is that we are. And some people are just radiating with this. It's energy. It's not a physical beauty. It's not necessarily what you wear, although what you wear does play a part in terms of personal brand. But the way that you move, when you go into a room, especially if you've been into a networking event or a business event, why is it that you naturally are more drawn to some people and you have a conversation with them and some people you're not? It's an energetic thing and you feel it. And the person that radiates the most amount of energy for people that have done personal development knows that there's something here or there's something about that story of how she didn't just become that way or he didn't just become that way. What's there? And that's what sparks really curious conversations, which I love. And so that's kind of in a long roundabout way. Gone through a huge purging, went through a bunch of heartbreaks in both professional and personal, but have come out the other side and kept faith the whole way through.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
I want to share one more analogy with you.
Yeah.
Everyone
story
listening
time
to the
with Dan and
podcast,
Mel,
anyone listening to the podcast is going, fuck, this guy said the same fucking story last 4
Well, maybe
episodes.
this person here needs to hear it.
Yeah, 100%. So there's an analogy or a framework I like to use around like what we're talking about in terms of the law of attraction and the outcome or the desire that it is that we're trying to create. And particularly around the point you made before around like whether it's comparison or feeling like something's missing or waiting for something first. So if you go to a store and buy a puzzle today, right, you buy a 1,000-piece puzzle. The reason why you would buy it is because of the picture on the box and you want to build this beautiful picture. And in this instance, let's say that picture for you is your reality that you're wanting to attract and become. Now, when you get home, a lot of people open up the box and for some unknown reason believe that there is a piece that's not in there. And so for the next 6 to 12 months, they're searching every day in their car, their house, backyard, everywhere, trying to find this missing piece so they can start. And throughout that period of time, they've done fuck all. They've not done a single thing apart from look for the piece that's missing. Now, once you realize there is not a piece missing, you put all the pieces on the table and there's 1,000 pieces here and you're thinking, fuck, I got no idea where these go. And it can be overwhelming. But you have to remind yourself that you're not meant to know where they go. That's the whole fucking point. It's a puzzle, right? And so we start looking at all these pieces, and then we make the commitment of, I'm going to show up and do 10 pieces a day for 100 days. Not that hard, right? 10 a day. There's inevitably going to be pieces where you have no idea where it goes, and it's like, fuck, this doesn't even seem like it's meant to be in here. But it is. And the way that we figure out where it goes is by putting the pieces around it together to make it more obvious.
Yes.
Now, on day 50, you could have done 50 days consecutively and shown up for yourself every single day, and the picture still looks like shit. But it's not because it's not working. Like it looks exactly the way that it's meant to at this point in time. And again, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when it looks the way that you want. Now, on the last day, you put the final piece in, and there's usually two things that happen. The first thing that happens is you realize that you had every single piece that you needed from day one.
The whole time.
Whether day one was 100 days ago, 10 years ago, or 2 weeks ago, you had every piece that you needed and there was nothing missing. The second thing you realize is that the actions you took on day one, when it all looked like shit and it looked like nothing was working, are the same actions you took on day 100 when you put the final piece in and it looked beautiful. And so I think for anyone listening, if you haven't heard that before, you have all your puzzle pieces. No matter what everyone else's puzzle looks like, or no matter how long you've had the puzzle for, you have every piece that you need. And it's not a question of whether or not you're capable or worthy of creating the picture. If you continue to show up for yourself and make those
Piece
moves
by
every
piece.
single day and compound those efforts, your picture will look the way that you want it to.
Yeah, I
And
love
there's nothing
that.
missing.
I want to add another analogy on
Yeah,
top
go for
of
it.
that analogy,
Shit,
which is when people bake a cake. Have you ever baked a cake?
No.
Okay. Have you seen a packet
Yes,
at least?
yeah.
You know, the greens or something.
Yeah, of course.
But when you're baking cake, you've got all of these ingredients and you're so looking forward to eating that cake. You're probably hosting or entertaining.
Yep.
And it's going to be what you choose your flavor of choice. But let's say a chocolate mud cake.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're going out there and looking at that picture and you've got all these individual ingredients, if I asked you to just eat flour, kind of doesn't taste very good. You know, I'm like, just eat this bowl of flour, it'll be really good.
Yep.
Or just have this egg yolk, just have egg on its own raw. That might be all right for your industry. And then you've got icing sugar and all these different ingredients. Each ingredient on its own isn't necessarily the magic that makes things happen. What happens is when you start cooking it, cross-pollinating these ingredients, and even then, some people might like the batter, but what happens with the batter when you lick it and eat it? And if you ate that whole bowl, you'd get kind of sick because it wasn't intended there. It's not finished yet. The cake hasn't been baked. And then you put it in the oven and you take time and patience and then you bring it out and it's this beautiful fluffy cake. But it was all of those little ingredients all put together to then create that bigger thing as well. And that's something that I've really loved is have the patience as well, but also knowing that if you're going through a hard part, that's an ingredient or that's a lesson or it's an attempt and it's building to that something greater. As long as you never lose sight of it, all of that along the way is what makes your story so great.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And even to that point, like those individual ingredients, and even once they're all put together, like we're talking about frequency, right? The only reason why it ends up looking like a cake is because the frequency has changed.
Yes.
And if it never changed, it would all just look like a bunch of mush in a bowl.
Absolutely. And it's a changing agent. And the heat had to rise. You have to rise and elevate with it. Oh my gosh, I actually love that. I'm going to add that in on top of it.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's great.
But I think with any of this, I'm sure you've had the same, is recognizing that your current story right now is selling you short. Like if you've been stuck wanting to make a change and you're listening to sort of this conversation being like, how do I move? It's assessing who you want to become and changing that story, knowing that you have the pen to write it. You can rewrite every single time a new chapter, a new book even. If that book's turning crap, you know what? Just close it, start again.
Start a new one.
Write this new chapter. You can create a new identity just like you did overnight. I'm in complete misalignment. Sometimes that misalignment and you being so unhappy with it is the catalyst for such a hard turn, a sharp turn.
Yeah. You obviously are an incredible person, firstly.
Thank you.
And there are so many things that you have done that have been successful and have had such impact on people's lives. What does the word empowerment mean to you, I guess you could say? And what does that look and feel like for you personally when you're in your, that feeling of empowerment? Like, what does it look like? What does it feel like?
Yeah. The first thing that comes is like a shining light, and it feels big. It feels expansive. Like the energy of empowerment feels like I've got so much overflow that I'm able to then pour over my love and my energy to others, which I love, and that feels expansive for me.
Yep.
I think empowerment looks like someone that has their internal reality matching their external reality.
Yes.
Someone that has really done deep work, which is why she shines or he shines in a way that is magnetic. I think that's true magnetism is you're fully empowered. And when you're in an empowered state, you know that there's more to give in this world. So you aren't in competition with anyone. There's only one of you. And so you can march forth and use your story and use your energy and use your light to shine the light on others. And I think that's the greatest gift of all is giving back. We've been there. We've been in a place where we wish we probably had a mentor or someone that was able to send the ladder back down, and we get to do that now and we get to be that, and I think that's just so cool.
It is very fucking cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I often talk about the fact that I believe personal development majority of the time is this process of elimination. Process of elimination, what do you feel like is the biggest or most impactful thing that you actually had to let go of to become who you are today?
My friends. Yeah. And I say that with a little bit of a big sigh because that was really hard for me, letting go of a friendship circle that meant the world to me.
Yeah.
A friendship circle that had been there from the very beginning. And when I had mentioned, what got you here is not what's going to get you there, sometimes that's our circle. And that requires some grieving.
Yeah.
And when you recognize that it's okay, you can keep them at arm's length, but when people aren't celebrating you and they're not cheering you on, and in fact they're having little snides and little digs around it, that stuff can spread like wildfire and you need to cut that shit out. And we mask it, that we've got, especially in Aussie culture, that it's like, yeah, but you got to give it and take it. And that's just kind of the banter that we have as Aussies. When you look at the way that we celebrate sport is we're mean. We're actually mean to each other.
Yeah.
If we look at a footy player that doesn't score, we're like, go get a tissue, blah, 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 have a slab of concrete, shot of concrete or whatnot. Like, it's just kind of like, I don't want that necessarily around me. And something that I've really been thinking about online is if your friends aren't in your comments saying slay, fire, are they really your friend? Like, that don't like your stuff, don't engage, don't acknowledge that the work that you're putting out there is incredible work. Not saying they have to buy from you. I'm not saying they have to be your customer, but they can be a support network because that's what friends are for. But when I recognize that, none of these friends actually want me to win, and there's comments that come off as passive aggressive around me showing up online and just little digs like, you're famous now, or you're an Instagram influencer now. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm never identified with being an influencer, but I am a person of influence. And hell yeah, I am. Like, and if this is the modality of how we're going to show up and someone that needs to listen to this today takes action, that goes back to the very start. This is my purpose.
Yeah, 100%.
This is my purpose, to leave you better than when before this podcast. I hope that after this conversation, someone's listened in and they have taken one little golden nugget away. We've done our job. And that's why we continue to show up.
I reckon there's two important pieces to what you've just said. The first one, which is really important to understand for anyone, regardless of whether you're a business owner or not, is just as much as we are, there's two actually. The responsibility is on you. And you took that responsibility of going, okay, like I am only going to experience what I allow, right?
Yes.
And if this is the standard I have for myself, and it doesn't matter who the fuck it is, it's like coming back to, talking to the universe.
So true.
It's like, is the way that you're living your life and what you're allowing in your life and the standard you're holding yourself to, not only when it's convenient, but all the time, does that make sense with what you're asking for? And I think what I struggled with, much younger, and I got to the point where I just gave zero fucks about what anyone thought. But even in the last few years, truly understanding nothing's ever about me, right? And what you've articulated before, having the awareness that is a projection. It's like, but at the same time, it's all well and good to understand it's not personal and that it is a projection. But if that is affecting you and your vibration, you are responsible for getting yourself out of that environment. You don't owe shit to anyone, right? And I think that's so important to protect your energy, particularly once you start doing this work.
Especially as you grow to another level of frequency when we talk about, I'm sure you know, map of consciousness type of work. And that just, I want to play in love, acceptance and enlightenment all the time. I want to stay in that high level frequency because it opens me up to other high level frequency individuals.
Yep.
And when you recognize that some people aren't, it's not a I'm above you or I'm better than you. It's just a mismatch of alignment. So I'm naturally going to intimidate some people, or there's going to be a certain feeling because as you grow, it highlights to that person why they might not be able to achieve the things that you want, and recognizing that it's a projection. But it's also not our job to always go around telling people that they're projecting. You can kind of just love and light and leave you, because I'm going to do epic work over here.
To your point before, like what gets you to where you are is not necessarily going to get you to where you want to be. And that includes those connections and friendships, like that. Those friendships at one point in time
meant everything to me.
100% aligned with you, your frequency, and who you were. But it's the game of life. You're meant to progress. And I also think,
though, Dan, like, haven't you ever wanted to take everyone with you? Like, I've been that type of leader where I'm like, come on, like, there's so much room on the jet with me, you know, come off and celebrate. But also, some people don't want to meet you there. They don't want to even see you there, let alone themselves in that light. And so that was something that was really hard, and letting go of seeing potential in everyone, because that's just who I am. And even when about price point, when I repositioned myself to a more premium high-end price point, I felt some type of way because I wanted to help everyone. But recognizing that actually the clients that I help now, I actually can activate them and expand them so much more because we're aligned. Whereas previously, I really resonate with the PT sort of clientele. It's like you're undercharging, you're over-delivering, you would bend over backwards, you're probably showing up before the client's there, and they can't even do that for themselves. It's so difficult because it's like, I care about you more than you care about you.
Exactly.
Like, why am I loving you and your business more than you are? And so you have to fire them all. Sometimes you have to fire all your clients to find the new ones. The beautiful thing about your business, it sounds like, is that they actually respected your work, so they re-signed on the new offer and the new package. That's powerful.
Yeah, and even something that I've been kind of moving through recently as well is coming back to those standards of, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a no.
Yes.
And so that means getting on a sales call and having someone quite literally say, how can I send you my money to work with me for the next 6 to 12 months? And you knowing that they're not the right client, that you're not going to be lit up with excitement and playfulness to get on a call with them each week, and being able to say no.
Yeah.
You know, being able to say no to something that's good to make room for something that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually started doing that with discount energy. So used to, again, want the client so bad that I'd be like, all right, you know, let me give you all of this. All right, you want a discount? I'll give you a discount.
I never do this, but I did do it the last 4 weeks.
100%. And then now with mentoring and just understanding sales a bit better, when a client asks now, you know, can I have a discount? I'm like, I appreciate that. I think that's really important to see if you can get a discount. But what energy are you bringing into these consultations and strategy with discounted energy? Like, you're not a discounted product. You're telling me with these goals and aspirations, you're kind of a premium thing. And so you're almost putting it back on them, being like, so there's no discount here. Yeah, it's super powerful because I only work with high-end clients. So what are we at Walmart or like, hey, like we're not doing budget. We're not an LD product.
Yeah, exactly right.
Like come shop here. We're a premium service. Do you ever see Rolex, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, any sort of your premium luxury brands waving a discount sticker? Absolutely not.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Nah.
So powerful.
You mentioned before we hit record today that, you know, you don't just wake up one day fucking working with like your ideal client, right? Yeah. Most of the time. So when was that moment for you to kind of make the decision that you wanted to niche down a little bit more?
Yeah.
And if you're happy to give the audience a bit of kind of context or insight into like how that looked, particularly with MCO, right? Like, when was that moment where you're like, okay, I've kind of sat in that period of time where I'm kind of allowing anything and everything to filter in, but now I know what I want? Absolutely.
I'd love to share. So if you're sitting earlier in your business and you are taking a bit of everything, I actually have this belief that when you're starting out in your career, you do say yes to everything. We're coming from a place now where we get to have the art of saying no. But when you're first starting out, when I built my events company, I was saying yes to everything. You want a wedding? Yes. First birthday? I got you. High tea? Like bridal shower? We were doing everything. And then corporate clients, trade shows, expos. We dabbled in everything. But when you dabble in everything, people don't actually know what to specifically come to you for. And so when we decided in that moment to niche down to corporate event management only, one, it's easier to solve rich people problems. It's easier to solve problems of people that have budget. And so we consciously decided to go into corporate event management and get rid of all the sort of like, well, one, someone's birthday or someone's event, it's so personal to them that they actually don't trust your particular service because they want to be so involved and so hands-on. Like, why don't you run it then? Why are you paying us to run it? Like, you should just host.
Yeah.
But for a corporate client or like expos and trade shows, they kind of give you a budget and they delegate it. They don't micromanage. And that energy for me worked much better for my business because we have our own system, but you're also hiring a professional that knows what they're doing.
Yes.
And so allowing that to play out has always benefited. And then now in the personal branding space, I coach a lot of personal branding clients. But something that I recognized was now every man and his dog is coming out talking about personal branding and everyone's serving personal branding clients. And so for me, I had to figure out, okay, what's my story, what's my skill set, and how do I reposition it? And so we've now gone away from branding just SME, small, medium enterprises, and we're branding personal brands of people that already have a successful business.
Yep.
And they've put their business first, they put their company first, but now they've recognized that their founder journey is completely invisible and that they have no presence on there. And this is actually really important for those wanting to get an IPO, wanting to exit and sell. Because brand equity is incredibly important and they dig deep and they look at who's running it because at the end of the day, it's people to people. And so if you've got no digital online presence, especially in a day and age like now, you could be in trouble and your business might not be exited for what it truly deserves to be exited at. And they need a bit of trust there. Yeah. So we're repositioning into that. So if you're looking to exit, if you're looking to go public, which a lot of our like real estate agents and like estate sort of that is where they kind of look at, or that's their next challenge. And I'm like, great, let's jump in there and let's weave this compelling story so that you can get to the market in a real exciting thing. Like Virgin arguably obviously has an F ton of value based on Richard Branson's brand, right? Amazon, Jeff Bezos, like all of it is the company's successful, but the personal brand amplifies it. It's like this supercharger to the company asset.
I asked a very similar question to what I'm about to ask you to Frank Grief not too long ago. Have you guys?
I haven't crossed paths with him, but we're in the same. He just spoke at Club of United Business, so we're part of the same entrepreneurial membership group.
Beautiful.
But yeah, I haven't crossed paths with him yet. He seems like he's doing great.
Get along very well. The question I posed to him, and if we use him as an example, actually, him and his brothers obviously have a $180 million exit, and now quite obviously is a big focus on not only building this new business, but building, like kind of tapping into his personal brand and utilizing that and leveraging off that. The question I asked him was, for someone who's in a position where they haven't got the big business or the success yet, but are putting a shit ton of time into personal brand, is there a right or wrong or right and wrong around like that approach? Because I feel like, as you said, now everyone is, not everyone, a lot of people are prioritizing personal brand. But in terms of success, growth, revenue, impact, that's not there. And the energy that should potentially be going into building that is going into this thing over here, which starts to look okay. But it's like that has done fuck all realistically for you over here. I don't know if this is making much sense.
No, it does. So if we are talking about from a content perspective and you're torn between whether you should grow your personal brand or your company brand, I would say 80% to your personal brand and 20% to your company brand from a content engine perspective. However, a personal brand is only valuable when you've got stats. Okay, so it still comes down to results. So if you're going out and you're building a personal brand because you've heard that it's kind of cool, but you don't have any success in business or the niche or credibility.
No authority.
Exactly. We're talking about building brand, which really is reputation, which then is identity, which is then association. You want your name to be Googleable or AI, ChatGPT-able to the industry that you serve. That's what the idea of building a personal brand is. It's not about creating TikTok videos or posting your green matcha. Like, that's just not what I'm about. But the influence of your brand is when you can talk about all of these stories, these lived experiences. So if you go out and build a massive company brand. Your personal brand, when you choose to put energy into it, it'll only elevate because you've actually got the runs and the stats. And if you're starting out and you're like, oh, well, I don't really have results in the company or the personal, document it. Document both synonymously at the same time and see one of them will take off first, but they'll feed into each other.
100%. Yeah. And that's, in a sense, I guess what kind of Frank's doing at the moment too, almost like the public build around it, although he kind of obviously had the authority beforehand. When I look back at my content or even my businesses, that's basically what I've always done.
I feel like we've had similar runs where we were doing it together. Like it was always like kind of building. Some people, Simon Beard talks about this openly, exited Culture Kings for 600 million. He wished he built, imagine how cool it would be if he built his personal brand alongside it.
Yeah.
He didn't have a personal brand at all. And so people weren't able to sort of almost be part of that story and that journey from the rags to riches. He's telling it after the fact.
Yeah.
And there's still benefit and value there. But I was like, oh my God, if he had just documented it the whole way through and we saw the car park thrift selling journey, it'd be so powerful. And that's why I'm always advocating, you don't know if you're going to have that next big exit or you're going to be the next story. But if you document it all along the way, that's when you get a Ben Francis Gymshark kind of brand, right? Ben Francis, every time I see him post and he's just documented the fuck out of the bedroom, the mum's house, the car full of clothes, all of that just makes that story. You fall in love with him and the brand so much more. So the loyalty with Gymshark is sensational. He's done incredibly well. Absolutely.
Obviously with AI at the moment becoming just part of everyone's life, right? That's the reality of it. We were talking before around how if information was like the
readily
barrier
accessible.
to entry, right? Or if it was the thing holding people back, then fucking everyone would be exactly where they want to be. How do you see this playing out over the next kind of 3 to 5 years with business owners, content creators, personal brands who are utilizing AI, but at the same time now potentially lacking in skill development as they build because they're heavily reliant on AI?
The AI will always amplify, 100% I agree. It's here to stay. So for those that are like, I'm against it, mate, just go sit in a bin because it's here. It's coming. It's here. We're using it. I don't know where I'd be without Chat, my best friend Chat. And but you got to understand your own tone of voice. And this is the thing where authenticity is going to have huge cut through. And people that have been doing the reps, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for the wave that's to come. And what I mean by that is when we talk about personal brands is you have 574 episodes that cannot be replicated and duplicated by chat or AI. You've got runs on the board, as do I with the amount of events that I have. And what AI will never be able to do, which is why this place is we're about to open up a whole nother channel, is conversations like this. This is real. Your people are willing to listen to it because it's real, tangible, real people having a conversation one-to-one. That's going to be really powerful. And for me in the event space and for anyone that's thinking of doing an event, I highly encourage you to start getting your speaking skills up to scratch because in real life events is going to be the thing again that people will go, is this person for real or is she, just another fraudulent person online because there's so many out there. And so if the idea is that we're constantly trying to build trust or we only want to buy from people that we trust, that's still there. The internet's about to become quite untrustworthy. Because everyone's got these immaculate captions, which we all know that you ChatGPT. And even
Gone the last 4 weeks of posting like 3 emojis for your caption and now there's
a paragraph,
novel
or with the double dash because your grammar is just that immaculate. Again, because now if language is readily available, everyone can write these amazing, eloquent captions, and even your videos can be scripted. I can pull a Layla Hormozi script and I could say it. But is it going to land? Is there going to be trust? Because if all you're doing is just regurgitating and vomiting out information that's not yours, we're going to see through that. And the only way that we're not is you telling the stories that we told today because you lived it. And I've lived it. So as much as AI is going to come out and knowledge is going to be readily accessible, your lived experience is actually going to go up. The demand for the real life, tangible, I was a PT and then I fired all my clients and done that particular story is a big fuck yes for me.
100%. where do you see, with the AI side of things in particular, how do you feel like it impacts what you do? And in terms of as a benefit or as a positive, like what is the biggest positive for you with AI and what you're trying to build and what you're doing at the moment?
Time collapse.
Yeah.
Things that took me hours, like reviewing a sponsorship deck, sending out an email that I would want to negotiate and get right, now takes 0.5 of a second.
Yeah.
And generating content ideas. So I think AI is a really great thing of teaching people how to ask better questions. So you only get what you put in as well. So like your ability to prompt it properly makes it less generic, right? Because if you just go, give me a caption around fitness and lifestyle, it's too general.
Yeah,
but if you're like, this is the person I'm speaking to, this is who I am, these are a few references of the things that I like, plus X, Y, Z, and I want the reader to feel X, AI is pretty good at giving you a really good foundation. And then it comes down to if you know your tone of voice. So I will read something and go, well, I don't speak like that. That's only from self-awareness that I would change the copy to make it sound more like Mel. And you would do that too. But to the person that hasn't got their tone of voice down pat and they don't even know who they are, that's when you're in trouble. Because you're going to start just being like going with the wind and you'll just feather along and flow wherever it is. And that's a dangerous time.
What for you is, like, what is the definition of success for you at the moment?
I actually am fully so successful because I think I'm embodying who I am. I'm finally at a stage now where I have but processed some of my darkest stories. And my trophy cabinet used to be, look at all the hard things I've done. Look at all the things that I've gone through. And it reflected in my interviews and it reflected in my podcast conversations. It reflected in my personal brand. I was the girl that lost her partner to suicide, which is a huge part of who Mel is. But as you can see, we were able to have a whole conversation and not talk about that necessarily. My dad died from cancer at 59. I got brutally cheated on, lost $180,000 in my first year of business. Like, as in, I could riff-raff all of the things that were hard for me. But I've chosen to rewrite all of that story and speak from a power of like just resilience and empowerment is probably what you're saying.
Of course.
And I think that's true success, going, none of that defines me. None of it.
Yeah.
It does, but it's what I've done with it. It's what I've chosen to do to continue to shine light on others.
Yeah, it's not the story, it's part of the story.
Yeah.
With this shift recently around more towards, I guess more towards a spiritual vibrational, energetic side.
I've only entered this world. That's why I'm awesome. Like, thank you so much for having me on.
It's the best.
Because I was so masculine in my energy in terms of like the way I did business, how hard it is. I was quite like an alpha in that sense. But then when I really dived into frequency, energetic match, even just the play on like using my feminine energy as a power in that's what makes me different. Why was I shying away from it?
100%.
And just understanding all of that. And then once you know, it's your responsibility to do better, right? So now that I'm entering this world, I almost feel like it's my responsibility to tell everyone. It's like, oh, that's a frequency mismatch. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, she's so woo-woo. But I don't know if
I feel like you do a good job of this. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
I feel like you do a good job of this, and this is how I try and approach this world, right? And through feedback and comments lately, I feel like I'm on track with it, is to be able to have the kind of both merge together to the point where it's not like we're fucking sleeping in a bush in the middle of nowhere wearing a monk robe and then whatever. And there's also, time and place for that stuff, of course. But it's like joining the two together where, as you said, there is the masculine energy still, but it's with a blend of the feminine and in a way where the average person who isn't in this huge spiritual kind of world at all is able to look at it or listen to it or come across it and go,
and it's not
I can see myself in that.
Yeah,
and
I love that.
I can integrate that.
And what I love about you is hats off to you for being able to be a man and an alpha in your own right to speak about this, because then I think it just helps, other men see it as well that might not necessarily be open to it, because you can have a full feminine, divine feminine energy come through and they will just cut it off, right?
Yeah.
But because you're the messenger, they're able to listen to it and receive it and have permission to do the same. And I think that's just so powerful.
I agree. I am. What I've experienced over time a lot is that when I am, like if we talk about the law of exposure, when I expose myself to something that is not currently normal and sit in the discomfort, sit in the awkwardness and normalize it as fast as humanly possible, that now becomes almost the baseline.
Yes.
That's when you start attracting more of these things into your life. Is there a moment that stands out to you that you were exposed to a level that was so far beyond where you were at that point in time that really led to a lot of growth and success?
Now with my coach. And I think you can jump it when you become the person that, so let me re-explain this. So I want to be a person, or I am a person that sells high ticket offers.
Yep.
And so to be that person that sells high ticket offers, I need to be a person that invests in high ticket offers.
100%.
And
I said this
so,
to a client today. Yeah.
Yeah. So my coach is very expensive for me right now, relative, right? It's all relative. However, investing 6 figures in 1 year's worth of mentorship has already propelled and shifted me like nothing else, because I walk higher because I'm a person that invests in herself. I back myself 6 figures in on coaching.
You're convicted in where you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every time after our sessions, I thank him and I'm like, I'm so grateful. And he's like, this is you. Like, it's always been you. Going back to that puzzle, it's actually always been me. But a coach helps you reflect and hold the mirror up. We all have blind spots. And so a coach just helps you push a door open. You walk through it, but just nudge a bit here and nudge a bit there. And that's the power of having a mentor. And so that's where the level up's been, because he helps me add zeros on my services to a point where when we first started, I could feel myself shrinking. I would probably be like
contracting.
I could feel it. And I would be like, so you want me to sell it at, let's just make it up, right? So let's say my offer was, I'm just 30,000. And now he wants me to add a zero. So I'm like, so now you want me to sell a program at 300K?
Yeah.
What? Right? But then Isn't
it funny how we instantly make ourselves small?
Absolutely. But because he challenges it and it's a safe space, and then he disarms it, but also gets me to entertain it and think about it and go, well, what would a Mel Yu version that sells programs at 300K mean? Okay, well, maybe it's all relative. So maybe I work with only 7, 8-figure, 9-figure business owners. Now 300K feels kind of small to unpack the next level of potential in an owner.
Of course.
Or if I say 300K, but they're exiting for 3 billion, kind of they would pay that, right? Nike, Kia especially, they just went through rebrands that cost hundreds of millions, right? I think it was like 50 million for the Kia logo rebrand.
Yeah.
That's a big investment.
Wow. But you can think of that from that perspective of, okay, well, me charging 300,
now
this company
small.
actually wouldn't even consider working with me because they don't even think I'm at the level to help them.
Yeah, they'll say I'm too small.
Yeah.
So where are you playing at? What rooms are you in? And does that room make you feel contracted or expanded? And it's like a balloon though. You don't want to go outside of like your threshold that you explode and like fall. Even then, actually, to be fair, nothing really will, you didn't die.
Yeah.
But you want it to feel really expanded and stretched and super uncomfortable at that price point, because like what you said, that becomes your new base. And then you go, now you get to start playing. But he's actually I'm going through a lot of transformation at the moment, which is being completely detached to numbers altogether. And I think that's been a really fun kind of place. I'm not fully there yet, but just removing meaning from any numerical figure, because we assign so much meaning, especially to money.
Take the emotion away from it.
Yeah. And what's the value? What's the service? Because now pricing feels kind of inconsequential. What's the goal? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. The money is always the byproduct.
Yeah.
Before we kind of wrap things up, I want to be conscious of your time. 2 questions. First one is, what are you most proud of about yourself? And secondly, what is normal for Mel Yu in 3 years' time?
Oh, great questions. What's the first one again? So,
what are you most proud of about yourself?
Yes. I'm proud of me for still showing up despite it all. I'm proud of me for every day I hit the I hit the bed and I hit the pillow at night and I'm like, I gave it a good hard swing today. And sometimes I'm exhausted, but sometimes it's like, yeah, it's just like every day I go to bed and I'm pretty exhausted.
Yeah.
But I've left no stone unturned. There's not much in life at this period of my life that I feel like I'm missing out on, because every time I get a ping, every time I get a download, I kind of act on it and go for it. And like I had mentioned in this conversation, course redirection is always available. So I'm not saying that everything was amazing and rosy and like, you know.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But at least if I failed, I died on my own sword, and that's just the game that I play. So I'm so proud of me for continuously showing up and just taking risks and saying yes to opportunities, and also then saying no to things that are no longer aligned. That's really fun. And the Mel in 3 years' time, where I would love to redo this podcast in another city, another place in the world, because we just happen to either be flying in and catching up with each other for whatever.
Speaking at the same event.
Yeah, whatever expansive thing that looks like. And we play bigger. And this has been an invitation for anyone listening, I think, to really highlight, like, where are you playing small still? You know, and every one of us has access to people that are playing a bigger game. And that's the version of, 3 years from Mel is going to be way bigger, way more expansive, way more empowered, whatever success looks like to me, which is ultimate fulfillment and alignment in the work that I do, serving more people and, speaking next to you at the next event. That'll be really cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
Mel, I really appreciate your time today. I've absolutely loved this conversation. It's been very nice to actually connect in person too. As you said, we've kind of been in the same network or in the same kind of group for a long period of time, but never actually connected properly. So I cannot wait to record our next one. Let's make it up now.
We're going to 3 years. When you're on your 5,000th episode or something ridiculous.
We're going to be doing our next episode. We're going to do our next episode on the back of a Lamborghini yacht in Monaco.
Oh my God, that's not even so far stretched.
Not at all.
Because like Monaco Grand Prix is 100% a thing that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And if we just make that 3 years Lamborghini yacht, done.
Yep.
Done. It's written. I can't wait till we pull this out of our evergreen content and we put that in the thing in 3 years. Oh, fire. Yeah, I'm here for it.
I've been doing that a lot lately. I know I'm just about to wrap it up. I've been doing that a lot lately where in pieces of content, publicly going like, you're going to see this video. I'm going to show you this video again in X amount of time. Or this is me taking, our Unifier supplement orders to the post office today on a trolley. And in 3 years' time, this background of this picture is going to be a warehouse.
You're documenting, not creating.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and you're taking people on that journey. So I think when you live congruently and with integrity, you do what you say you're going to do. And when you put two people and you just kind of, I want to teach the audience something in that moment that you did just then, was the art of manifestation. You visualized it specifically and you gave it a deadline. You didn't just say, the next time we do this is in Monaco, full stop. You subconsciously, I don't even know if you recognize how powerful you are as a manifester, is Lamborghini yacht, there's an actual product, Monaco in 3 years. It's very freaking specific, which means obviously it's done.
100%.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Can't wait.
Mel, appreciate your time. That was fucking awesome. Thanks so much for everyone who has tuned into the episode today, guys. If you have found value, which I have no doubt that you would have, we would love you to take a screenshot of this episode, share it on your Instagram story, or send a link to a friend or someone that you care about. I'll have the links to all of Mel's socials and all the great stuff she's doing in the show notes below, so be sure to follow along with her journey. Thank you again, Mel.